And we're going. How's my Wednesday night crew doing? If you are here, leave me a little message. Say hi to Gary. Our good buddy, Gary Hirstius, is here tonight. I have been looking forward to this. Gary deserves like 3 streams. We need to have him on at least one follow-up here. And I'm super excited to have Gary Hirstius, good friend of mine, on the show tonight. He is standing by waiting. And if you're here in the chat, just go ahead and leave me a little note, leave a little comment just saying you can hear us and you can at least hear me. And say a little hello to Gary, and I'll make sure we let him know. He needs no introduction in my world, but just to let you know who he is, he has done everything that was on that thumbnail that was up and more. He took his... I'm going to let him tell his story because he has a number of stories, and I want to let him decide which ones we're going to say. Gary, how you doing, buddy?
Dave's World, excellent. How you doing?
Good, man. On. How you
How's
doing,
it going,
bud?
people? I'm doing good. You?
Good. I'm really good, man. It's really good to see you. So let's see here. Looks like we've already got a couple of people in the chat here. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Lupa Boom says he likes turtles. That's Boomer. He says hi to you.
Hey, Boomer.
Yep. And there's Ryan Beck. Ryan, we were just chatting about how good it was to see you today. It was so good to see you.
Ryan, my man.
Swinging by Maryland Sound. And Gary sporting the MSI jacket here.
Most excellent.
I'm repping for the localityness.
Yes, indeed. Well, there's a snowstorm coming tonight. Yep. And this is the warmest jacket I have.
You have. That's a good jacket. And there's Gail. Gail says hello, Gary, and hello, DD. Hi, Gail. Thanks for being here again.
How are you?
She's a regular on the channel, and
very cool. Very cool.
She never misses one of the streams. Oh, and it looks like I got a text from Kevin Hopkins. Just sent a text too. I don't know if he has the comment thing going, but his foot's doing well, and he is watching. He's got us up on the TV, so you say hi to everybody there.
My cousin, how you doing, cuz?
Good old Gary Hirstius, buddy. How you doing, man? It's been great catching up with you.
Yes, it's been fun.
Yep, and Juliet's throwing a little wave at you too. There, hi, Juliet. So, okay, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to ask you couple of questions, and then we're going to talk. Gary has some pictures that he's given me, and I'll be able to share them up on the screen. So as we get going, we'll kind of use the pictures to help the story here. Yeah, Ryan says, "Yeah, man, definitely miss hanging with you, bro. It was really good to have you there.
You know it, man.
Yep, it was nice having both you guys there today. So at the same time, it was kind of like the olden days."
Yeah, it's like, being on each end of the snake again. It's
yeah, cool. Right. Yep. So let's talk a little before we get tech or any of the star stuff. Okay. There was a point in your life where music hit you, where music said to you, Gary, here's a song, and you heard things a little different, and you wanted to. Like anybody, when the music bug hits you, what'd you do then? What did you take on an instrument?
Well, the Beatles came out in '64.
Okay.
And I was 12 years old.
Yep. Okay.
At the time, and I just remember my grandfather saying to me, "Hey, Gary, come down here and see these boys that want to look like girls." And I was thinking, well, okay, whatever. So I came down and I was bit. Yep. I mean, I already loved AM radio.
Okay.
Which at that time was mostly either Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly, or very obscure one-hit wonder stuff that you would hear.
Yep, right, yep.
But I had a babysitter named Jeannie Way that was really into Elvis, and she played that and Buddy Holly all the time.
Okay, so
those were my early influences with music.
And did you take on an instrument at any point during any of that at that time?
Well, a few years later, when I was like 15 years old, my friends that I grew up in Annapolis,
okay.
And I had a few friends, Tommy Worthington, his brother BJ. They played instruments. Their dad owned a couple old Gibson gut strings, and we would sit on their front porch, and Mr. Worthington would teach me chords.
Okay.
Or I don't know if he was really teaching me; he was teaching all of us.
Uh-huh.
But I picked up on that, and I loved the guitar, but I really sucked for a long time. I just wasn't good enough to play. But I loved the whole idea of a band.
Right.
And eventually, Tommy put a band together called the Invaders with a few kids in the neighborhood that I went to school with. And they just, you know, for some reason, a friend of theirs wanted to be in the band, and he was a drummer. But they already had a drummer. And he wanted to be in the band so bad that his dad said, if you let my son in the band, I'll take you guys to Chuck Levin and buy you anything you want.
A big music store here in Wheaton, I guess, right?
Right. So these kids went up to Chuck Levin. They came back with Vox amplifiers, and this was in '64, I think. They came back with Vox amplifiers, Beatle bass, and a little PA system. It was a Shure Vocal Master.
Okay.
And a couple of these big horns. And that was their PA. I was very intrigued by the whole musical thing, but then again, I wasn't that good at it. But I loved music. And I had a friend, Jeremy Kilborn, that used to play blues for me all the time. And he was a huge Rolling Stone freak. In fact, I think he probably thought he was Mick Jagger at one point. He looked like him. He dressed like him. It was funny. But all my friends in Annapolis, we all loved music growing up. It was something new that was different. You know, everybody was growing their hair long. Everybody was sneaking around the corner smoking pot. You know,
it was the outlet at that point. And
it was, yeah.
And so you see this whole system, this PA system now, and it's a whole different kind of a thing. And did that hit you? Did you ever get to work on that? Did that lead something for you, or was that just kind of a passing moment in your time that you remember?
No, because it was shortly after that. I was 17 years old, and my father, who was a police officer, detective, narcotics guy, you can imagine how that worked out.
Not happy with you going around the corner.
No. And he didn't like the fact that I was growing my hair and never was home. I was always, but I wasn't really doing anything except listening to records,
right?
You know, and watching bands. And I just loved music. So eventually I ended up in the Marine Corps. I really didn't want to go, but I had no choice.
There you were.
So at 17, I found myself in Parris Island.
Okay.
I was a combat engineer for a while. I went to Vietnam. I was there for 4 days.
Wow.
4 days. In fact, I didn't even set foot on land. I was on a ship, and we were heading to Zamboanga in the Philippines to rebuild an orphanage and a water purification system. But on the way, the ship pulled into the Vietnam waters and left. And on the way back, it pulled through the Vietnam waters again. Now, I was asleep down in the bottom of the boat. But for some reason, they gave us medals for going to Vietnam. And because we came back and went through it twice, we got a little bronze star that said, you've been to Vietnam twice.
Oh, my God.
You know, and I didn't even know I was there until they gave me the medal.
You got a medal for a nap.
I said, what? Okay, whatever. But when I got back, they had a project transition for soldiers who had been to Vietnam. So I qualified, and I put in for it, and I told them I wanted to be a disc jockey. So they sent me right over to Joint Public Affairs, and before I knew it, I was making commercials.
Okay.
Sitting behind a Gates yard too, playing like Steppenwolf, stuff like that, Magic Carpet Ride. It was called Music for Marines.
Okay.
And when I didn't do that, I was a voice of God. You know what the voice of God is,
right? Making the announcements and stuff.
Right. I would do that at parades, change of command ceremonies, that kind of thing.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. How tech found you in that sense.
Yeah, it kind of just like, boom, all of a sudden, here's a Gates Yard 2, figure it out,
Oh, yeah.
Old SM7, it was good stuff. But from there, it was, I got married, went to college. It was the recession. So I got a job as a disc jockey in country radio and did that for quite a while until they fired me, I think, for playing too much Tanya Tucker. She was only 14 years old, I think, but I loved her just the same. It didn't matter. But no, I went to college and I was a drama major. And I did a lot of plays.
Okay.
I always had the lead role in the play.
Oh, okay.
I played Schroeder in Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. And I played a tormented child in Tea and Sympathy.
Okay.
But I got out of college and my teachers told me, you should get into the business. So I said, okay. And I called a friend of mine who had moved to Hollywood. And he was managing a band called Driver at the time.
Okay.
His name was Jan. And he managed bands. He knew a lot about music. He knew a lot about the business. He said, come out, I'll help you get started in, acting. So I went out there, did some headshots, sold everything I had about $3,000. He picked me up at the airport and he pulled this little glass vial full of this white powder. And I had never seen it, never heard of it. He opened it up and grabbed a spoonful of this and shoved it up my nose. And I was in heaven. I was in ecstasy.
So you guys are in his car?
Yeah, we're in his car driving through Beverly Hills.
Okay.
Right? So I am completely messed up on cocaine.
Your first time driving through Beverly Hills, and here you are. Whoa!
I was like, oh man. They would put little pieces of glass in the road so it would shine like stars.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. And it was amazing. I blew through that $2,000 in a week. And think of the worst thing you could blow it on. That's what I blew it on.
That's where you were. Yep. So there you are in Hollywood. And
the acting thing was not working out.
Right. Okay.
It was like you couldn't get on a lot. You couldn't get into central casting. You had to know somebody. All I knew was Jan. But Jan was working with this band Driver who never quite got signed. They got beat out by the police. Not police officers.
What was the label?
A&M Records.
Okay, yeah. So not beat up by the police, but beat out, chosen over by the police.
A&M was trying to decide, should we use this West Coast three-piece rock band, which was dead. The only thing going on in Hollywood then was disco music, and it was awful. It was just the worst.
End of all that at that point, yeah.
Oh, and the rock bands were just as bad. It's just terrible stuff. And these guys were so bad. They did their record release party at a radio station. And you know how DJs are. Yeah, we got Driver in the studio tonight. These guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, Driver.
Here's their new album that's just out called Rocket to the Stars. Let's have some call-ins now if you want to talk to the band. Crickets. Nobody calls in. While I'm sitting in the management office, I grab the phone and I call the radio station. And I go, hey, man, is Driver there? And the disc jockey goes, yeah, Augie. He calls me Augie. He goes, yeah, man, they're here. And I go, oh, I love those dudes. They're going to rock it to the stars. And I hear the band in the background just erupt. Oh, my God, we got a fan, right? Well, lo and behold, I knew that this radio station would give away money if you said the magic word, wham, walking around money.
Okay.
So I asked the DJ, I said, dude, have you got any wham for me? And he goes, Augie, you want some wham? And I said, yeah, man, I want some wham. He goes, all right, you got $50, Augie. And I'm like, yeah, you guys rock. Best radio station in LA. Fast forward to about 2 weeks. I'm standing in the management office with the band and with their manager.
With Driver from the studio, yeah.
Right. In comes the mail. He says, hey, there's a package for you, Gary. And he throws me the package. I open it up. It's Driver's album, a T-shirt, and a check for $50.
Wham.
And so I turn to the band and I go, hey, look what I got. And they're like, that was you? I said, what do you think? Somebody was really going to call in?
Oh, what a sad. I mean, it's a sad but funny story because it's so Spinal Tap and it's so true, and
It was Hollywood,
that
dude.
was how it was, right? And it was moment, but anything they could do to try to hype it, and when the hype is not happening, it's well, just, the crickets.
And
Way to cash in on it there.
I realized right then and there what it took to make it in this town. Right. So Jan introduced me to this guy, Alan, who was driver's monitor guy, Alan Kuttner. Well, they owed Alan all kinds of money when they got dropped by the label, which was right after they signed the Police, I guess.
Okay.
They owed Alan a lot of money. So Alan took all their gear. They had Shure microphones. They had, all kinds of great stuff for back then. Mic stands, big wedges, nice fucking side fills. Excuse me.
That's
Good stuff. Good stuff, right? Alan I guess he didn't have many clients, but I said, hey, I know where we can use it. Punk rock. So we started doing punk rock shows.
Okay.
And we would do the plugs mostly because that's who we knew, right? Okay. And I would let the plugs come down to SIR. Now, SIR was where I got my first job in audio.
Okay. So as for those who don't know, SIR, Studio Instrument Rentals, and this is Hollywood?
Yes, this is in Hollywood. They had, I don't know if they had New York yet, but I think they had Nashville and San Francisco.
Okay. And what year, just for perspective? About
this was about 78, I think, 1978, maybe 79. But SIR was owned by Ken Berry. And his brother was Jan Berry from the group Jan and Dean, who gave us Sidewalk Surfing. Mm-hmm. Well, the Berry brothers were pretty famous as far as roadies go in Hollywood. Neil Young wrote that one song called Tonight's the Night. You familiar with that? Tonight's the night. The first line in the song is, Bruce Berry was a working man. He used to drive my Econoline van.
Huh, okay.
Well, that was Ken Berry's brother. So these guys were all roadies back in the day of, the Eagles and stuff like that. So they started the first rehearsal studios for bands in L.A.
Yep.
And they did it at this place called Gower Gulch, which were old Western studios where they would do Westerns back in the day. All the Tom Mix, Gunsmoke, that kind of stuff. So all these studios were no longer being used because Westerns went out. So they bought these studios and converted them to sound stages, which they already were. They were already soundproofed.
Right.
They were ready to go. All you had to do was bring in the bands, which they did. So I would come there every day for like a week. I would be on their doorstep at 7 a.m. And the owner would come by and he would unlock the door. I'd get out of his way and I'd ask him, are you hiring anybody today? And he'd say, no, not hiring anybody today. And he'd walk in and I'd just walk down the street and wonder where the next meal was coming from.
Right.
Well, this went on for a week, about maybe 5 days. I came back and every day it was the same. He brushed me off, went inside. Except for the 5th day, I literally put my foot in the door, stuck my foot in the door and stuck my head in. And I couldn't believe what I saw. I saw racks of drums all the way around the building, all colors, all sizes.
And the angels you heard.
And there were all these roadies that looked like they were in the Eagles. They all looked like Randy Meisner, with these kind of shirts and jeans and cowboy boots and hair down to their shoulders, running in every direction, pushing twins, pushing SVTs. And there were doors with Studio A, Studio B. And it was a madhouse. I loved it. And they had a bunch of guys working behind a desk. And one of those guys was this guy named Ira Malik. And Ira was a cool dude. I liked Ira from the beginning. We got along great. And every day I'd come back there and I'd ask for Ira. And they'd say, oh, yeah, come on in. He's inside. So I'd go in and hang out all day and push amps for free. Eventually, one day, this guy walks in. He goes, Hirstius, you're on the payroll. $7.50 an hour. That was the start.
Right.
I never got to push one amplifier into a truck, and they put me on the stages where I had to do rehearsals for all the groups.
Okay.
My first group was James Taylor.
Wow.
He came in with this group called The Section.
Okay.
Russell Conkle, Lee Schuyler.
All the big guys from the time.
Yeah. They played on everything. Linda Ronstadt stuff, everything. They were just incredible. And that was the first one. The second band I worked with was the Runaways.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, it was funny.
The local Maryland girl there at that point. No, the Joan Jett.
Was Joan from Maryland?
Joan's a Hagerstown girl, yeah.
I never knew that. I never knew that. Yep. In fact, if Gary Moore's listening, hey, Gary, he was her bass player.
Right on.
Good old friend, man. Gary was a good guy.
Cool.
But anyway, I got my start there at SIR doing that. And, it was a simple time. We had like 8-channel desk. They didn't even have auxes. You had 2 foldbacks.
Okay.
And
the monitor in order to hear what was happening. That's what it was called at that point.
Right. It was called a foldback back then. And we had community sound and light wedges, these big, fat, fiberglass things. But we had some nice side fills, which were pretty good. They were made by SIR, I believe. But it was pretty cool stuff.
That's cool. And so you're working. So now you have taken that whole techie thing has just kind of once again found you.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't look for it. It kind of just fell in my lap.
It fell in your, but you did get to, literally putting your foot in the door was your foot in the door for that. So if you don't try, you're not going to get anywhere. And
no, you got to try.
So you're doing that, and you're at SIR for a while, a number of years at this point. You see art, and that was your job. And
you remember I told you about Ira, the guy who I met there who was in dispatch. Well, Ira went to work with Ricky Nelson.
Okay.
And he called me up one day and asked me if I could drive a van and do a show up in San Francisco with him and Rick. And I was like, sure, be glad to. So we, went and rented a van, went and picked up all the gear from the lockers at SIR, headed north up the highway towards San Francisco. Okay. Just me and Ira, right? And, we got some party favors with us to help the ride go along nicely.
Is this that it helped the ride go along? So is that what this is this the van?
No, that was one of our tour buses.
Oh, okay, that's the tour bus here. Yeah, okay. I just was looking.
You notice the name of the band up there? It's "Show Us Your Tits."
That's nice. There was definitely a different time, wasn't it?
Oh, we had a scroll on it. Like one said John who? For like John Denver. John who? It was pretty funny. Funny. But anyway, we were driving north. And we were doing this and that, getting our heads straight and stuff. And all of a sudden, there's blue and red lights in the rearview mirror.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, oh, boy. First day with Ricky Nelson for me. We get pulled over halfway up to San Francisco. Ira pulls off the road and into a parking lot because he knows they can't tow your car from a parking lot. He's a smart guy, right? So we pull over. They get us both out of the car, and Ira's holding.
Oh, right? Boy.
Yeah, he's holding. I know he's holding. I'm like, oh, shit. What are we going to do? Right? So Ira starts, going, I got to go to the bathroom. Right? So the cop's going, oh, you can wait. And he's like, no, man, you don't understand. I'm gonna go all over this place. I'm going to whip it out right now if you don't let me go to the bathroom. So the cop's heard enough. He says, okay, come with me. He takes him into the bathroom. So Ira pulls out his junk, and he hides it behind the toilet. He comes back outside, and the cop's got him in cuffs by this time. I forget what he was charged. I think he had warrants or whatever. I don't know. But he's got him in cuffs. He's got him in the back of the car. He's about to take him away. The cop asked me, do you have a license? Can you continue? And I said, yeah, sure, I'm fine. So as he's taking him away, Ira looks back at me and he goes, I'm like, what?
There's a thing.
I start going, what? And he goes, and I'm like, oh, in the bathroom. So the cop puts him in the car. They drive away. I go in the bathroom, and sure enough, there's all the paraphernalia and the drugs right behind the toilet. So I put it in my pocket. I start driving up the highway, right? And I start thinking to myself, I don't want to get caught with this shit.
Right.
So I snorted every bit of it.
I got that ride over with real quick.
Oh, boy. I was in San Francisco at no time.
Yep, exactly.
Ira showed up that night.
Oh, my God.
He said, now, if you're watching, Ira, I'm sorry. But he asked me, he said, what happened to it? I said, I couldn't find it.
Well, now Ira knows.
I couldn't find it, man. Where'd you leave it? I must have went to the wrong stall.
That's hilarious.
But that was the first night with Ricky. And
with Ricky, you know.
He was quite the guy. He was.
There's a pic with Ricky right there, right? That says
that's Ricky there. That was Larry Melton. Hey, Larry.
Larry says hi. Yep. And Gaz said hi. We'll get a couple shout outs to you guys.
Hey, Jeff.
Jeff Everhart rolling along there.
Awesome.
So this is your last recording session with Ricky?
Well, I didn't work on their session. I was there taking pictures.
Okay.
But yeah, Rick wanted to go back to doing 4-track. And this was an old console. I think it was a Gates. I'm not sure. But look at the old Altec speakers, like the one Rick's leaning on. That was some classic stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
That was really that was a cool session. Some authentic sound.
Yeah.
But as everybody knows, Rick passed away on New Year's Eve. I believe it was in '84. I went to a lot of funerals that week. It was really, really sad. A really sad time. I love Rick's family, and my heart every New Year's. You know, that's all I can think about is Rick. There's Matt and Gunnar. You know.
Speaking of the family, yeah, there's you ended. So you toured with them at some point too?
No.
Okay, no.
Now you got to remember, Hollywood. A lot of Hollywood is a blur. You know, there were a lot of substances that were being abused back then. And the Nelsons have always told me and credited me with being the first person to record them. I don't remember this. Matt Gunnar, I'm sorry, I don't remember this.
But you were hanging out with Ricky all the time, so it's quite likely that was the case at that point.
I don't know. It's you know, I remember they borrowed one of our Fender Twins one time for the rehearsal. They had a band called Strange Agents. Okay. They were they looked like flock of seagulls.
Before Nelson.
Right. They had the big hairdo like flock of Nelsons or flock of seagulls. I called them flock of Nelsons. But fun. They borrowed one of our amps, and I remember I went and got it out of their room and put it in we had a private jet, a Learjet that we flew around in. Okay. So we had to carry the gear in the alleyway. So I put this amp in there, and all of a sudden it just started stinking. What the hell is? So I look in the back of the amp, and there's a dead python snake.
Oh my God! In the back of an amp, in the back of a Fender.
It was their pet python that they couldn't find, and the thing had crawled up in back of the amplifier while the tubes were still warm to keep warm, and it died there. Oh. And the smell! What the smell? We couldn't wait to land. It was so bad. But yeah, the Nelson boys were very cool kids.
That's cool. Well, that's great that you had the family kind of lineage still then with them.
It was so weird because I grew up watching the Nelsons on TV just like so many people did, and to all of a sudden become part of that family. Right. At a very strange time, at a time when Rick and Chris, his wife, were breaking up. Yeah. And so it was a very, very bad time for the kids, for everybody. So I always tried to interject some fun into everything.
Uncle Gary.
and that's always what it's been about. Is you got to have fun with this gig.
Yeah.
Yep. You can't do the stuff that we did in the 70s and the 80s. You can't get away with that anymore.
Right.
But it was always meant to be fun in audio, and it was.
And it should be. Yep.
I mean, Rick was just like I remember him from TV. He was just like that. Hi Gary, what's my screen? That kind of guy. He had never signed a check. He had never had a checking account. Didn't know how to fill out a check.
Wow.
Never done his own laundry. Didn't know how to cook. Maybe he could flip a burger or two. I'm not sure.
Right.
But he was a movie star and a TV star, when he was a child.
Right. Yeah. From the beginning.
So he grew up, and when he was 15 years old, he went on tour, with that one hit he had, I'm Walking.
Mm-hmm.
And, he came home and he told me his mom said to me, Rick, get upstairs and clean your room. And he was like, but Mom, I'm Mr. Nelson. And she goes, I'm Mr. Nelson. Get up there and clean that room.
Clean your room, Mr. Nelson.
They were just such a great, down-to-earth, loving family, that would a great tradition. And I was very honored and proud to be part of that.
That's awesome. And it's just, to just see to have the family heritage and it's just such a time for you, I'm sure. And
well, have you ever heard of the old Errol Flynn estate that, had the secret passageways and the two-way mirrors and, the black pool where they put some director in a chair, he died, so they stole his body from the morgue?
No.
Well, that was Rick Nelson's house.
Oh, wow.
It was a very famous house. And it literally, you could go up to Tracy's room and there was a carpet. You pull the carpet back and lift up this trap door, and it was a two-way mirror above Rick's bed.
Oh, my God.
So Errol Flynn and all of his buddies would sit up there and watch these young starlets get hammered.
Oh, my gosh.
And just have a gay old time. But there were also telescopes that would look down onto the first floor from the second floor. And it was a knotty pine was the wood. And one piece of pine had a knot in it, but it was a telescope.
A scope, uh-huh.
Yeah, and it reflected into the mirror in the living room, which showed you the whole house.
Oh, my gosh.
So he could look in this
old
telescope.
School monitor system, yeah.
Yeah, it was an old spy system.
Wow.
And these two-way things in the house, it was a very, very cool place.
That's crazy.
Well, flash ahead, about 6 years when Rick died, they sold that house, right? Now, I don't know how it happened, but I drove up there just to go by and to see the place one more time and reminisce.
Uh-huh.
When I got there, they were bulldozing the house down.
Oh, wow.
The bulldozers were literally running over it. Now, again, substance abuse. I was really, really, really high. So I sat down. I sat down in front of the bulldozer and I didn't want him to, and I was crying.
Right, right. This is big memories. And
I was like, how can you tear this house down?
We got a contract here, so we're going to take care of this house.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hell, man, this kid's high as shit. Get him out of here.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
So they pulled me off to the side and continued to bulldoze down the house.
Wow.
But that was a very, very sad
So,
time.
yeah, an emotional time. That's something. So was this all – so then let's step back for a second. You had also talked about the punk scene that was kind of going on in the 70s for you, and how this – so Ricky, your time with Ricky was after or –
it was during. It was actually during.
It was all kind of happening. This all kind of flowing. So you would have time with him, and your time home would be kind of spent working with these, beginning punk artists, basically.
It's kind of hard to explain, but as far as punk rock went, there were really no professional sound engineers that would even go near it. In fact, my first gig in a club was at the Whiskey A Go Go. I was there to watch a show, and I was standing next to the console back when it was in a crow's nest. And the house engineer said, "You want to do this?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah." So he sat me down and he showed it had a chorus echo.
Whoops.
A tape echo.
Hold on, sorry, I just screwed up the screen there for a second. Okay, so it was the first an effect, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It was the Roland Echo, the tape echo, and they had a AKG BX20 spring reverb in the attic.
Okay.
So that was the only two effects you had. You had the BX20, and you did monitors from front of house. Now, the guy had already preset the monitors for me, so that was pretty easy.
Okay.
But, that was my first time mixing a show. And it was for a few punk bands there. I actually got credited for a 45 by this band called Skull Control.
Okay.
The song was called My Girl Stumps, about a girl who lost her legs in a car accident.
Oh, gosh.
And it's My Girl Stumps. She makes my heart go thump, thump. Real classy song.
Who's this looking at in this picture here?
Oh, that's my buddy Alan Kuttner, who co-produced The Decline of the Western Civilization.
Okay. Which is all about the beginning and the end of the punk.
Right. He was Driver's sound guy.
Oh, okay.
He was their monitor. He's the guy that ended up with all the cool gear.
Okay, gotcha.
So if you ever see The Decline, the punk years, you'll see all these very nice microphones and stuff. Those were Alan's. And, we worked the shit out of that stuff. We did every punk show that came to town.
Right.
We were the guys, That picture that's up now, that's the Circle Jerks. That was another band I managed. I managed them and a band called the Vandals.
Okay, the Vandals, yeah.
Yeah. So there was...
Is that my phone or your phone?
It's not my phone. My phone's turned off.
That's my daughter. I'm going to have to tell her. I'll call her later.
See, I know better. I turned my shit off.
Yeah, I thought I had it off there, but and I even messaged her. Sorry, Parker, if you're watching.
Hi, Parker. Hi, sweetie.
So you were with the Circle Jerks here.
Well, this is one of the first promo pictures that I had taken of the Circle Jerks. Okay. I believe it was shot by Frank Gargani. I'm not sure. It's either Frank Gargani or it's impossible to remember that stuff. But I wanted a picture of the band that made them look harmless.
Right. Right.
Because there was so much, so much bad mystique, attracted to punk rock.
Right.
Promoters didn't want to put it on. You pretty much had to four-wall a venue to put on a show. But as things started breaking and getting better for punk rock, it got easier and easier. Before I knew it, it was selling itself.
Right.
But we went to A&M Studios and we cut this album, Wild in the Streets.
Wild in the Streets, that one right there. So you recorded that with the Circle Jerks?
Yes, I recorded it and produced it at A&M Records.
Okay.
It was my first time on a digital Neve console.
Oh, wow.
And it had a Melquist computer that was tracking everything, as well as 2-inch tape. Huh. But the Melquist was kind of weird. It would always make this noise like every 45 minutes. It sounded like a donkey, going, but it was, shifting. But it annoyed the hell out of me. I hated it.
It's funny the things you remember, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's like the thing with producing punk bands for me was these guys didn't have money. There was no money. There never was any money. You did it because it was what you loved to do.
Right.
It was fresh. It was new. And so everything I ever produced or did, I would do it in one day. The Circle Jerks, Wild in the Street, recorded it in one day. I think like 12 songs. The Gears, Rockin' and Ground Zero, recorded in one day, mixed in two. And that was the way it was. It was fast. It was live. It wasn't, okay, take 15, guitar track. We didn't do that.
That's not punk.
Well, for one thing, a lot of punk bands weren't that good. You know, I mean, Greg Hetson, the guitar player for the Circle Jerks, he couldn't tune his guitar. And when we were on the road, he didn't have a spare. So if he went out of tune, he would try to tune it himself.
Right.
But you couldn't hear with the crowd and everything and the noise. So he would go to the bass player and have the bass player tune it. He was pretty good. He could at least get it tuned. I remember we did a do you ever know a club called the Peppermint Lounge in New York?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, it was a pretty famous club, and we did a show there New Year's Eve with the Cramps.
Okay.
It was sold out. It was just packed, asshole to belly button from the front of the stage to the back of the room. And Greg's guitar went out of tune after the first song. The bass player was a little drunk and a little pissed off at Greg, so he refused to tune his guitar for him. Oi. 1 minute goes by. 2 minutes goes by. Pretty soon, Keith, the lead singer, goes over and sits down on the edge of the stage. You know, like, oh, Jesus. You know, he's yelling, would you at least tune his guitar? He won't do it. He won't do it. It was a disaster. It just messed up the show. It was a huge show, too. I was really pissed. So pissed that the next day I took him to Manny's Music. And made him buy another guitar and a tuner.
And a tuner. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know, managing the Circle Jerks and being their tour manager and their producer was overwhelming, you know, because there was a lot of alcohol involved. I mean, a lot of alcohol was involved. And so you were always dealing with a bunch of drunk punk rock kids.
Right.
And it was very difficult sometimes to get shit done. Well, Keith, he promised me that he was not going to drink on the whole tour, and he didn't. He didn't. He was great. He held back on that stuff, you know, and it was awesome. We just went from one show to the next until we got to New Orleans. And we were booked at a club called Tipitina's. And we came, and Keith was drinking all of a sudden. And I mean, when we got to sound check, he was drunk. He went and he got on the drum kit and he just sat there hitting the snare over and over. He wouldn't stop. Finally, the club owner comes up to me and he goes, look, either you get that guy off that fucking drum kit or you guys are not doing a show tonight. I will take your money. I will kick you off the bill. Do something. So I was like, yes, sir, no problem. So I walk over and I walk behind Keith and I go, Keith, stop playing the drums. Wham, wham, wham. Keith, stop playing the drums. Fuck you.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, all right, fuck me, no problem. So off about 20 feet off the stage on the floor is this big drum case, right? I go over and I open the case up. I walk up behind Keith and I literally pick him up from behind, take him over, and I throw him into this case and I slam it shut and lock it. Right? I go in the dressing room and I get a 6-pack of beer. I come back, I open the case and I throw the 6-pack in. I slam it and lock it. Where he stays. I don't even sound check with him. I just go, okay, we're good. We're done. All right, let's go eat. We went and ate. The doors were open. People were coming in. And I was, oh, shit, where's Keith? Oh, hell, we left him in the fucking case. So whoops. I go over and I open the case. And everybody's with me. The whole band's standing there. We open the case because it's really quiet. I'm like, oh shit. Man, I open it up. And
might not be a show tonight, folks.
Keith pops out of this case butt ass naked.
Oh, God.
Not a stitch of clothing on him.
Oh.
He jumps out of the case and goes running out the front door of the club. I look at our roadie. His name was Dream DeLon. We called him Wet Dream. And I go, Dream, go get him. So Dream takes him. I look inside the case and there's Keith's clothes. at an empty 6-pack of beer.
Oh my God.
We did the show that night.
Uh-huh.
And anybody that was there that night remembers this story. And we headed back home after the show. Great show, by the way. Awesome show. We head on back. Keith is out of his mind drunk. And he's in the back of the van, right? And he opens the door to a van and he's yelling to this girl on a motorcycle behind us. He takes her back to the hotel room. And the next morning we had to check out, and I went up and nobody answered his door. I banged and I banged, nobody would answer. So finally I went down and I got the hotel manager to open the door for me. So he opens the door and I walk in and there's Keith on the couch with his pants down to his ankle. This chick with her face buried in his lap.
Oh God.
And she's butt-ass naked with her butt up in the air. The double doors are open to the hotel room. There are sheets hanging off the balcony, blowing in the wind. And there's shaving cream all over the walls. And he started writing a song in shaving cream.
Oh my God.
And all I'm thinking is, man, we got to get the hell out of here before the maid gets here. Because that place was totally trash.
Oh, that's a disaster, yeah. Gail really thinks you need to write a book here. She's saying you need to write a memoir. Yeah, I like I said, folks, he has, you need like a 3-parter. There's so much that we could talk about, and each story has a sub-story and a sub-story, you know?
I've been told that before, you know.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Everybody I say, hey, you want to write my book? It's like, oh, no, that's okay.
It's a lot of writing. I mean, look, here's a picture of you with Bo Diddley and Ricky, right?
That was in Alaska at like 4:00 in the morning when that picture was taken.
Yep. And then so you're just bouncing around. You don't look. You definitely have the punk scene look going on here, and then you know Ricky is being Ricky and Bo's being Bo. You know
Ricky liked that about me, that you know right. I didn't look like Randy Meisner. You know, like every right. other roadie at the time. I was just I'd come to work wearing bondage pants, you know, and it didn't matter to me. In fact, I did a show one time with Rick. We would do a lot of outdoor sheds and, you know, and like county fairs. And we were doing this one county fair outside, and I was putting out the water and the set list and everything for the band. And I was wearing bondage pants, you know, the kind of have zippers all over it.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
And there's usually teenage girls up on the front, you know, to check out Rick. But this night there was one old man, just this one old guy. He was probably my age now. He's in his 60s. And he kept yelling to me, hey, Blondie. You know, and I'd hear him and I'd ignore him. You know, I didn't want to, you know.
Didn't want to deal.
He wouldn't let it go. Hey, Blondie, I got one question for you. Oh, my God, jeez. What does this guy want? Again. Hey, Blondie, come on. Just one question. So I turn around. I walk up to the edge of the stage. I go, what? And he goes, one question. I said, what? Which one of them zippers do you pee out of?
Oh, God. Oh, you gave it to him. You said.
So I pointed down to the bottom one by my ankle. I said, this one. And the girls got a laugh out of it.
That's funny.
But the whole punk rock thing appealed to Rick. I used to wear a crucifix, an upside down crucifix in my ear.
Just to do it, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, it was all for, you know, like, you know, the shock value, yeah. Well, I remember I got off a bus one day with Rick. We had just pulled up at a county fair. Usually we would be met by the mayor of the town, the chief of police, or the sheriff, whatever. So I step off the bus, and there's a sheriff right at the bottom of the step. And he grabs me, and he grabs my cross. And he goes, what the hell is this? And I look at him, I go, sir, it's just the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ. And he goes, oh, well, hell, ain't nothing wrong with that. You got to diffuse things sometimes.
You got to be able to do it. Yep.
You got to know, you know, you don't go into confrontation.
You don't challenge that guy. Yeah, you don't challenge that guy.
You make friends with that man.
And here
You
you
know?
are being that. There's you playing the role. What this is you. So you like you said you were doing some acting. You're
Sure,
in
sure.
Hollywood. You're doing mixing. You found
Yeah.
yourself in music videos. Here you are in a Chicago music video, and you ended up on video
Yeah.
sets as well doing this.
Yeah. That I was in a Prince video, Raspberry Beret.
I just saw that the other day in a store, and I was like, "Guys, Gary was in this video," or I can't
Yeah.
remember where it was in the shop. I was playing in the shop the other day, and I was like, "Guys, Gary was in this video." They're like, "Get out of here!" I'm like, "No." They're
Yeah.
like, "What has Gary not done?" I'm like, "Yeah, exactly. He's been in videos and helping
I
people do it. You know, it's great. I mean, that's
it
the tools of the trade, though. You're developing your own set the whole time that you're doing all of this. You're just kind of soaking it in.
you just have to be aware of where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, and
And you have
that's
to
a big
learn how to play the game
yeah,
because it is a game. It is entertainment is a big game,
yep,
and this was at a time when, if people liked you and you were a nice person to work with, you were fun to be around, you could get work. But now if you were a prick, and people didn't like you, or you had a or you had a drinking problem,
yeah,
unless you were working for Ingve, you didn't work.
yeah, yeah, right. So
They just didn't want to put up with it.
that's what we were kind of chatting about too. Is the whole if you there's these camps that you want to be in, and there's the camps that you don't. You end up running into a camp that you're like, "Ooh, this vibe is a little funny here," and sometimes it could just be one person in that camp
Sure,
that has
sure.
created that vibe, and then you move on to another, and you're like, "Man, this is perfect. I fit in just right here."
And it's always been my thing. Anybody I hire or I have hired in the past had to be a good person. I didn't really give a shit how, skilled you were at your job. Like my buddy Larry Mitchell,
Hmm.
wonderful guy. So I took him on tour with me with Was Not Was,
Hmm.
just to help out because they said I could, you know,
Yeah,
and
that's awesome.
or Noel White, from Annapolis. I mean, Noel was an awesome drummer. He played with Jimmy for a while on a few things, Underfoot and
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 he goes.
jar flies.
He does. He still does. Does he still do the Sting tour? Oh, here's a shot of you with Don.
Yeah, he works for God, what's that drummer's name that plays with Sting all the time? I can't.
Spiro Baptiste.
No, Ciro was a
Ciro.
percussion player.
Oh, okay. Oh, he goes.
Vinny Calhuda.
Oh, really? Okay, he's out with Vinny now. Okay, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. Noel's been with Vinny for a while, but it's like Noel was perfect for that. I asked him. I said, "Have you ever thought about being a drum tech?" And he told me, he said, "No, man, I'm a drummer. I don't
Right.
drum tech." I said, "Okay, well, how much money are you making as a drummer?" And he kind of looked at me like, and he laughed. "I don't make any money." And I said, "Well, I'll give you $1,500 a week to come out and drum tech. But you
I
got
made
to have."
drum tech.
Yeah, exactly. He had a passport in 2 days,
And yep, exactly. Yep.
and he hasn't looked back since.
Yep, and Brian Morrison had said nobody knows how many music videos Gary's actually been in.
I don't
Kevin
even remember.
Kevin really wants to know your thoughts on PV gear. And what's he say? Kevin is saying Gary is the Vinny of sound guys.
I like PV gear. In
Yeah,
fact, PV made some good amps in the 70s and 80s. They made one called the Classic.
the classic and the Mace was one that Kevin was just asking about. He hadn't realized that was such a popular thing.
Especially among country steel players.
Mm-hmm.
They loved them.
The
They
clarity and the
loved
punch
them.
that you could get from that.
And speaking of country and stuff, let's talk about some country stuff that Don was
Oh yeah,
got me
okay.
connected with.
Yeah, so let's just it was how the connection. Let's go right to Don, and then how that all kind of branched and everything
Well,
that happened with you with that.
Don had a band called Was Not Was, R&B band. Had three singers in it. And one of the singers was Sweet Pea Atkinson.
Okay,
And Don worked on the line in Detroit on the Ford, assembly line.
okay,
And he heard
wow,
this guy singing one night on the line. And he said, "Dude, your voice is awesome. I want to get you in a band with me." So he hired Sweet Pea and a couple other guys. Was Not was born at that point. And Sweet Pea would come to the Roxy Theater all the time. He loved the shows. And I didn't know who he was, but I had seen him all the time. He would always dress in these cool looking outfits.
Okay.
You know, shark skin,
right, I remember,
matching hats, matching shoes. I mean, who the hell wears an orange suit and has matching hat and shoes? I mean, this guy he was sick. He was cool.
Right.
But anyway, he would watch me run, because a lot of times we do 7 nights a week of work at the Roxy.
And you're just busting your butt as the sound guy at that point.
Usually 6 bands a night. And this was during the thing they called pay to play.
Oh, yeah.
Which really killed the Strip.
It's, some cities still believe in that. I hate to say it, but
it's the worst thing that ever happened to rock. If for you that don't know what pay to play is, it was the promoter would book 4 or 5 bands or 6 sometimes to put on a show. The first band, he would say, okay, you got to pay me $200. The second band, it would be like $600, and it would just escalate up to the headliner. Sometimes the headliner wouldn't have to pay; they just had to sell tickets.
They just had to make sure they were covered. Yeah.
But the deal was that if you didn't pay that promoter, he would take your gear at the end of the night and hold it until you paid him. You don't know how many fights would end up on that stage at the end of the night. I got to confiscate your drum kit. Oh, yeah. Bash, crack. Fights everywhere. I hated pay to play.
Yeah.
It was disgusting. But Sweet Pea would watch me run back and forth, because sometimes I do front of house and monitors.
Right.
And the monitors were upstairs backstage in a closet. So I would have to run all the way up there, set the monitors, and come out and mix the front of house. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So one day Sweet Pea said, look, I'm going to get you a real job. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Go ahead now.
I got a call from New York. You want to work for this band called Was Not Was? I was like, okay. And that went into, hey, you want to work for this guy named Herbie Hancock?
Oh, well, so that was the direct link to Herbie. Okay.
Yeah, it was the same management company. And they had me go out with Jill Sobule, a bunch of different artists. We opened for who was the drummer of the Eagles? I'm sorry, Don Henley.
Don Henley,
We opened for Don Henley. Great tour, inside job tour. They really took care of us. Best gig I ever had. 2 channels, guitar, vocal.
Nice.
That was it.
And they sounded great going in, so why not sound great going out, right?
Here's my Demeter DI. Here's my plug. Yep, works. Thank you. All right, sound check's done. We'd go on. We'd be done in 30 minutes, off the stage, headed down the road.
Nice.
It was awesome. Sometimes you get sweet gigs like that.
Yeah, that's good.
But for the most of the time, it's hard. But Don I love you, Don. You changed my life, dude. You, Lou Adler, Herbie Hancock, Ricky Nelson, David Barry with the Rock Bottom Remainders, who's got Stephen King in his band. I mean, I've been with these guys now for many, many, many years. Stephen King's band I've been with for 25 years. Don I started with in the early 90s, and I'm still with him. Of course, Herbie and I, we went separate ways after about 10 years. He thought it was time for a change.
There's you and Herbie, and Art. Art before hi Art, thanks for being here. Says
Art.
Don't forget to ask about the 2 Notches story.
Oh, the 2 Notches.
Because since we're on Herbie right now, that was a Herbie show, right? The old 2 Notches.
Now, this is a lesson, people. For all you young engineers out there, here's a rule that you should never break. Do not communicate with the audience during the show.
There's a wall. Yep.
Do not talk to them. Do not acknowledge them. I don't care if they walk up to you, you will pay for it.
Yeah.
I had this happen to me. Now imagine you're in a shed. There's about five, I don't know, a lot of people under the shed. It's a tin shed, right? And you're mixing a 3-piece jazz. Okay, so you got piano, bass, and drums. That's it. Sometimes the passages get really, really soft.
Really quiet. Everything's
really quiet.
very
It's
subtle.
like you wonder if Herbie's asleep,
Right.
And sometimes he was, but that's another story. But anyway, this one day I'm out there mixing really soft patches. Out of the peripheral vision of my eye, I see this man walking down the aisle, and it's very quiet. Nobody's talking. It's really quiet. This guy comes up to the soundboard or to the little fence around the soundboard, and he's like, "Hey, man." I ignore him, right? He's like, "Hey, man, I got to ask you a question." And I'm like, "Oh, geez." He's pretty loud. He's a little drunk. Maybe I'd better talk to him and see what he wants. I go, "What's up, bud?" And he goes, "Man, I'm sitting way out in the back by the fence, and I can't hear it. You're going to have to turn that shit up." So, I mean, it was like something out of a Richard Pryor scene, right?
Right. And meanwhile, you're on stage running monitors, which is not.
No. I'm doing front of house.
Oh, you're in front of house. Okay. Sorry. Got it.
I'm in front of. How would this guy get backstage?
Right. I got you. Yeah.
He just came walking up from the field out back, where the delay towers were.
Yep.
And he comes up and he's like, "Man, you got to, so I'm like, okay, fine. I turn it up a little bit. I grab the master. I give it about 3 dB, right? Oh. I go, "Check that out. See how that is." Shouldn't have said that.
Right. Yeah.
Should have just said, "There you go." This guy goes back about 15 minutes later. He's back and he's drunker, right? And he's like, "Hey, man, hey, you got that shit sounding pretty good." He goes, "But you're going to have to still give me 2 more notches." And I'm like, man, biggest mistake I ever made. I said, "Dude, I don't have 2 more notches. I just don't have it." And I did have it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
I just didn't want to give it to him.
Right.
So he's like, "Man, I used to play with Herbie Hancock." And I'm like, "Oh, Jesus."
Oh, here it comes.
Here it comes. He goes, "I'm going to go talk to Herbie." He marches his ass right up to the front of the stage and starts going, Hey, Herbie, your boy won't give me 2 more notches." And Herbie just stops playing. And he looks over at this guy and he goes, "What?" He goes, "Your boy out front won't give me 2 more notches." He goes, "He won't." He grabs his microphone. He goes, "Hey, Gary, give the man 2 more notches." Oh. I was like, all right. By this time the audience is cracking up.
Right.
They're laughing. I'm just going, "Oh my God." That's never happened to me except once in Germany. I got beat up by an old lady with a cane. It's true. She did. She walked right up to the front of the house with this cane.
Wait, while you were working?
While I was mixing, and she smacks me across the back with it and screams out in a broken German accent, "Das ist not jazz." And it wasn't. It was like a 6-piece band up there doing progressive jazz.
Right.
So it was, it was loud. It was not a little jazz trio that she expected. And she whacks me with, and I turn around to say something to her, and there's this huge guy, it looks like Sven, standing behind her, he's like, "Not jazz," that's
right. And you're like, "Not musician."
I was like, "Yeah, take your cane and go up there and hit Herbie."
Go hit those guys, right? Yeah, hit him.
Go hit them guys. It's their problem.
Oh my gosh.
Their fault. But and Don would bring me into all kinds of things. Like we would do the American Music Awards. Mm-hmm. We would do the Country Music Awards. I remember we did American Music Awards one night, and we were sitting backstage. We had just finished doing the rehearsal, and Don and I were sitting on this couch, and Snoop, Snoop old dog comes walking by,
Uh-huh.
and he recognizes Don right away, and he goes, "Was man, what you doing?"
Right
And he
on.
looks at me and he goes, "Meatloaf." And I looked
Meatloaf.
at him, I go, "Meatloaf? No, man, leftovers." And,
Right.
and he goes, "Oh, right." So we started talking, and he asked us if we wanted to go out to his limo and listen to a new song he had just done. So Don's
Cool.
like, do you want to go? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go out to this limo and get in the back seat. We're at the American Music Awards,
Uh-huh.
and Snoop breaks out this just big old bomber,
Man.
man.
Uh-huh.
And he throws in this demo tape, and it's a song he just did called Gin and Juice.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So we just sit there getting ripped, backstage with him. And that's just one of a million things. I mean, one night I got a phone call out of nowhere from Willie Nelson. And I was amazed because I didn't know where the hell he got my number, but I figured out later he got it through Don's manager.
Through Don? Okay.
Yeah. And so Willie calls me up and he goes, hey, Gary? And I go, "Hey, Willie, how you doing, man? What's up?" And he goes, Trigger died. And I'm like, Trigger died? And I'm thinking Roy Rogers and Trigger, I thought Trigger's been dead. And he goes, no, my guitar. and I'm like, oh, that Trigger. Oh, okay. What's up? And he says, Trigger's dying. It's, the bridge is coming off.
Yeah, the hole.
By the
time the hole developed, yeah.
And he says, I've got to do a show next week at the Country Music Awards. And he goes, and I need a guitar to play. And he says, I know you work for Gibson, which I did. I worked with Rich Bartle, and we gave away guitars for Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
They would ship us guitars. We would give away some, keep some, It was pretty cool, actually. At one point, I had like 13 guitars.
Nice.
All
and then right from Gibson.
Right from Gibson, and then a junkie next door to us broke in and stole everything. It was heartbreaking. Yeah. But anyway, I called Gibson, and they said that they were making a Chet Atkins in the custom shop for this band called the Gypsy Kings.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And they said, but we've got to have this guitar back. We got to have this back. Willie can't keep this. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay. And I called Willie. I told him I had him send it to his address. And a couple days later, Willie did the Country Music Awards, came out in a tuxedo playing that Chet Atkins with a Gibson strap. And I thought that's great for Gibson.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I ever saw Willie wearing, anything but Trigger.
Right. And
as far as I know, it's the only thing that he ever did without Trigger. But, that kind of stuff. And God, we did a tour. It was called Country Rhythm and Blues.
Mm-hmm.
It was a CD of duets. Bob Dylan and Trisha Yearwood. We had Ringo Starr playing drums. It was just it was a star-studded album. And we were doing rehearsals for it. And this was a couple days after the Northridge earthquake hit. The big earthquake was like 8 point something. Did a lot of damage. Well, we were in the studio rehearsing at Center Staging in North Hollywood. And the earthquake aftershock hit. And it was about a 6-pointer. It was big. And the lights started shaking above the stage and rattling, and the building started shaking. And I saw Ringo pop up like a jack in the box, jump over his drum kit, out the front door, and into the parking lot. So I went outside, and there's Ringo standing in the middle of the parking lot. And I go, Richie, you all right? And he goes, I'm not going back in today. That's it. I'm done.
Wow.
I'm going home.
Wow.
He left that day, but it was cool. We did the rehearsals, did the show, hung out with Bob Dylan for a bit. Very cool guy. He was a nervous kind of guy.
Huh.
He sat on the couch, and now anybody that knows Center Staging knows that they got some clean studios.
Okay.
I mean, they go in and they wax their tile floors every night. You can shoot video in there. You can do TV shows in there. It's cool stuff. Well, Bob was sitting there with these big motorcycle boots on with spurs, and he was just digging one spur into the floor, just pound, pound, pound. It was chipping up the floor and everything. And the owner came up to me just freaking out. Dude, you got to get him to stop. You got to get him to stop. And I looked at him, I said, dude, that's Bob Dylan.
Right. What?
If you're smart, I would take that section of the floor up, have him sign it.
Sign it, yeah.
Frame it, and hang it.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, that's a good idea. He didn't do it, but nothing ever happened.
Well, at least you defuse the situation, though. You do what you got to do, right?
You do what you got to do to keep everything going. You don't create conflict.
There you are with Ginger Baker. Speaking of a guy that just never had any conflict ever, right? No,
I love Ginger Baker. I thought he was the coolest son of a bitch in the world.
And you coming from the punk world, he spoke your language in that way and everything, right?
He hated everybody and everything,
right?
And he just, and plus he was playing for the Masters of Reality, which was, in my opinion, one of the best bands to come out during that time. I mean, Chris Goss. I mean, every singer that's a big guy like Meatloaf. Chris Goss. They all have these beautiful, beautiful voices that just you listen to their octave range and you go, how do they do that?
Right.
How does this sound? Like Aaron Neville. If you ever worked with Aaron Neville, you're like, oh my God, this guy's huge. It looks like he'd rip your face off.
Right, and you expect a deep voice like this, and then they can hit the control.
It comes out, and you're just like, oh my God, that's beautiful. It's just amazing.
You got to wonder if that's their way of finding their solace. I always heard that James Earl Jones kind of developed the Darth Vader voice. He developed his voice in order to kind of trick himself out of stuttering. He'd listen to his voice and could then adjust. And I always kind of thought that singers that maybe don't have that traditional look or a traditional whatever it is for the time, that then are able to explore themselves and really dig into themselves. There's a beauty in that, and they find it. And then there's when the world finds it, like what happens with American Idol or something like that. But on a smaller scale, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when you found a unique artist at the time, Richie Valens, or anybody that could, Buddy Holly, that had a voice that,
sure,
then you even if they were defining a look, whatever they become, in a way to kind of break a mold and say, here I am, and then become accepted.
Exactly.
It's their own little way of kind of dealing or coping. I've always kind of felt, and being there to make an artist feel comfortable through all of that is what you found a niche for yourself, and also tech was there, and guitar tuning was there, and talking to people, knowing that somebody like Ginger Baker, not everybody could deal with a personality like that, but you had this buffer of going, he's just like one of the punk guys I can deal with.
I just had to find out what Ginger was into,
Yeah.
I didn't want to get on his bad side. The first show we did, the first night, I recorded the show, and we went back into the lounge of the bus, and I plugged it in and I played it. And first thing, Ginger, he looks at me, he goes, "You've only got 3/4 of Ginger Baker." And I'm like, "I only got 3/4. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Where's my hi-hat?"
Uh-oh.
And I listened to it, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're right. It's really low in my mix." And he made me listen to early Cream recordings.
Uh-huh.
And every one of them, Ginger's hi-hat keeps time. Every song. That is his time right there. That hi-hat is constantly tapping out time. And I learned that night, never missed it again. And I also learned that he liked to smoke joints. And he would drink a little bit of rum and coke that I would call it a 5%er. And so that was our bonding thing. We'd smoke joints and he'd drink a little rum and coke, and he couldn't sleep on a bus. So I would sit up all night with him, and he would call the bus the Suffer Bus. So the next album that Masters of Reality put out was with Ginger, and it was called Songs from the Suffer Bus.
Huh.
And he wrote one song on the album called T USA, capital T USA.
Uh-huh.
And it meant hot tea, like the English drink tea,
uh-huh,
and what it was like to drink tea in the USA. And the lyrics literally said, one thing that really bothers me, which was no lie, drove him crazy, was a Yank's inability to make a good cup of tea. He said the instructions are written right on the bag, but they either think it's a joke or it's a gag.
Uh-huh.
And it does say right on the Lipton tea bag, pour boiling water over the bag.
Uh-huh.
And to an Englishman, that's the only way you can get real flavor out of a tea bag.
Yeah.
Now, at an American truck stop, they're going to bring you a little tin cup with some warm water in it and a tea bag hanging out of it.
Uh-huh.
This would just set Ginger off.
Right.
And he would get the waitress, the poor little thing that has no idea who the hell Ginger Baker is.
Right.
Much less what a good cup of tea is. And he would just, look, read right. What's it say right here? Pour boiling water over the bag. Get me some fucking boiling water. And
wrote a song about it.
They go away crying.
Yeah.
So I figured out, well, I just got to get in there before Ginger.
Yeah.
Every day.
Diffuse the situation.
Have the boiling water ready for him when he gets in there. And he loved that. He thought that was great.
That's
One
good.
night, let's flash ahead a little bit on the tour. Ginger and I are in Hawaii. And we're at the Dole estate. The pineapple people.
Uh-huh. Yep.
This guy named Michael Dole, I think his name was, he owned a bunch of polo ponies, and Ginger loved to play polo.
Huh.
So this guy paid us to come do a show at this polo field, and Ginger was able to play some polo. So we get there, and we're in this mansion right off of the North Shore in Oahu, and we're looking out the window, and he's got this little cigar box full of weed, and Ginger's rolling joints. And it's the first time I've ever seen Ginger without a shirt on. He's wearing a wife beater, Italian wife beater. And I look on his arms, and there are track marks all up and down both of his arms.
Yeah, he wasn't shy.
And so me being me, I look at Ginger. I go, "Hey, Ginger, do you ever shoot any dope?"
Though
his face just went, it just turned into this monster. And he goes, "Every day, twice a day for 35 years.
Oh, God.
And I was like, oh, man.
Can you imagine?
Woo. Can you imagine is right. I mean, he was there the night Hendrix died.
Wow.
They were all doing the same shit. In fact, they tried to get a hold of Jimmy, he says, to tell him not to, shoot that heroin. It was really, really, really strong. It was stronger, and that's what killed Hendrix.
Wow.
But, him and like guys like Ringo, I love touring with those guys. I mean, Ringo was a laugh a minute.
Yeah.
I would always ask drummers, especially, who's your favorite drummer? I asked Ringo who his favorite drummer was, and he goes, "Oh, that's easy. Me."
I've written all the best ones and played all the best.
All right, I can dig that, and I'd ask Ginger Baker, I'd say, "So, what do you think of Ringo Starr?" And he'd go, "Ringo, he's a basher." "Oh, a basher, okay. All right. Well, what'd you think of Keith Moon?" Because to me, Keith Moon was a basher.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Well, what do you think of Keith Moon?" Again, his face just distorted, and he goes, "Fucking Mooney. He stole my ideas."
Oh, really?
Yeah, I said, "Well, what do you mean he stole your ideas?" He said, I was the first person to use a double bass. And I went, well, no, jazz acts had double bass. And he goes, I was the first one in rock and roll. And I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, easy, buddy.
Here's a joint. Relax.
Yeah, here's a little rum for you. Come on, what do I need here?
Relax, Kaloon. What's wrong?
That's funny.
So, anyway, he told me, he said that Mooney came to a rehearsal and saw that he had two drums. They were different types. I think one was a Ludwig, and I don't know what the other one was. But Keith Moon went out and had the Star Drum Company, I think that was the name of them, make him a custom double bass kit, which I guess nobody had done for a rock band at that time. So that was a little bit of argument. But Ringo, he was awesome. I mean, tour managing for Don and having to do these, like famous people, it was kind of strange because we'd get to an airport and I would try to tell the airport people, okay, in about 5 minutes, Ringo Starr is going to come through this door and there's going to be about 30 cameramen chasing him. And, they'd be like, yeah, right, whatever, get out of here. And I just want to have a room to get him into,
right.
So, yeah, right, whatever. Pretty soon through the door would come Don and Ringo and about 40 paparazzi in tow. Click, 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 click. And then the airline people would just go, oh my God, it's Ringo. What do we do?
Tried to warn you.
They just didn't want to listen, but it wasn't always like that with Ringo. I mean, we did a Farm Aid in Ames, Iowa at the Tornado Stadium. It was an outdoor gig. We got to Ames, Iowa on, I think it was a Friday night or a Thursday night. And we got there like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, late, We rented a car and it was Don in the front seat with his wife, Gemma, and me in the back seat with Ringo, or Richie. He liked me to call him Richie. So we're driving through Ames, Iowa on a Thursday afternoon, about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're hungry. We're looking for someplace to stop and eat. And everything is closed. Maybe it was a Sunday, but everything was closed. We couldn't find anything. And we're driving down this road, and way out in a field, about, 100 yards off the road, I see a strip joint, right? And it says Exotic Dancers. So I turn to Ringo and I go, Richie.
Exotic.
I said, Richie, what do you think they mean by exotic dancers? And he goes, oh, that's easy. 3-legged women. I was like, that's rich. That's rich. So we pull up into the parking lot of this strip joint. I walk inside and there's a waitress wiping down the bar, and there's it looks like the chef in his whites ringing out the cash register. So I walk up to her and I go, excuse me, are you guys open? And she goes, nope, we're closed, honey. She's wiping down the bar. And I said, oh man, I've got Ringo Starr with me and we're hungry. And she goes, I don't care who's with you, we're closed. The guy behind the cash register goes, who'd you say? I said, Ringo Starr from the Beatles. He goes, fire up the grill. She goes, what? And he goes, fire up the grill.
Oh,
but he's like, shut up, fire up the grill. About that time when he's saying that, in walks Ringo and Don and Gemma. So he seats us down at this table, brings us our menus. We're looking now. Ringo, he eats microbiotics. He won't eat real food. He eats his microfoods or whatever they're called, microbiotics.
Okay.
If you bring him, like Evian water, you don't put it in ice, because he'll look right at you and go, this is poison. He's that strict about it.
Wow. And so, that's why he's still around too,
Well, his wife, what's her name? Patty. I can't remember now.
Right.
But anyway, his wife would fix him these things that look like meatloaves, and he'd bring that in and they'd prep it for him and he'd eat that. But it was very strange, Dave, because I don't think we were in there 10 minutes, and all of a sudden this place starts filling up.
Wow. He let everybody in town know.
He got on that phone. He called
Uh-huh.
everybody he knew.
Uh-huh.
Before I know it, the strippers are back at work.
The exotic dancers are.
The booze is flowing, and Ringo is holding court. And he's just telling story after story after story. It was one of the best nights we had.
Barbara Bach is who Larry's saying is
Barbara Bach, exactly.
Ringo's wife. Yeah, thank you there.
Yeah, she would fix all of his microbiotics, but Richie was a wonderful man. I'm so happy to have met those people.
That's all you. I mean, you've spent time with people in situations that it must be amazing to just see people like Stephen King or Ringo Starr in a situation like that, and then to have alone time with them to let them decompress with you. And that's kind of where you've gotten to with
you make them feel comfortable,
right?
You know, you don't if you see they're on edge, you do something about it. You know, if you see conflict, you try to stop it. You know, you don't add to it.
Yeah, don't fuel that fire.
Yep. I remember I was leaving the hotel one morning, checking out in Germany, and our tour bus, like there was a cab right at the end of the walkway from the hotel, just sitting there, and our tour bus was right behind him with his back end hanging into a street. And he was trying to get this cab driver just to pull up, 3 feet so he could pull the bus up. And this cab driver was having none of it.
Right.
So the cab driver and the bus driver are just standing there screaming at each other. You friggin', just yelling, right? Now, this is where a good tour manager comes in.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I got there, I saw the situation and what was up. You know what I did? I walked right up to the cab, opened the door, got in, and go, let's go, train station. And I shut the door. The fucking cab driver got behind the seat. Where are you going? I want to go to the train station. He pulls off. We got about a half a block up. I go, this is good right here. I handed him a $20 bill and went, thank you. Oh. Walk back to the bus driver, goes, that's brilliant.
Situation diffused.
Situation diffused.
Yep. That's awesome.
It's just stuff like that gets you ahead, gets you working with, people learn to trust you. People learn to have faith in you. They know that you're going to get their job done, and that makes a big difference to artists. Yep. It really does,
Very much
just
so.
Show a little bit of love, and if you're mean and you're anxious, you're not going to get far in this business.
That's very true.
It's like I always say too, the business is changing. It's changing so much for all of us. I mean, with this thing of COVID and what we have to do now, I mean, things are changing. Even the people that we work for or work with are changing. In fact, I got a special guest.
I was going to ask, didn't you want to bring a guest?
I have a special guest.
We got to give shout outs to the
this guy. You've probably seen him. He was at the Capitol riots. You've seen him everywhere. He's a wonderful guy. I'd like to introduce you to my friend. This is Rack Lid.
Rack Lid. He has served his duties. He's well worn. You see the scars that he's
more people have seen this guy. And he's cool. He just went with the flow.
He just did what he had to do.
See, they were throwing shit at him and stuff. He a true Maryland Sound employee. We love him very much.
Yeah, what a year this has been, and what a way to sum it up, right?
It's been crazy, hadn't it?
I'll tell you what, that Rack Lid drew, I think 200,000 hits to the Maryland Sound website in about 24 hours.
I even heard that people have been purchasing our cases. Trunk cases.
People like the cases. The cases have.
No, I heard the Capitol building.
The Capitol bought some.
They're probably going to have a little museum with a picture of the people, pushing it.
we'll have Stephen King write about it. The fine I have to. Let's end on Stephen King because it's
All
just.
right.
Yeah, Ryan is saying Raglands. Yeah.
Raglan.
How so I've gotten so many of there's so many like branching paths. This person led to this person, which led to this person, which led.
Sure.
Where did Stephen King come into this, and how did that work for you? And because you clearly had to do more than just mix audio for his band. You were in a lot of situations with him.
Yeah, but this is kind of a sad story. In 1995, Stephen King was on tour with the Rock Bottom Remainders with used to be an old friend of mine named Chris Rankin. A lot of people know Chris by the name of Hoover. And Hoover called me up one day and asked me if I could come in and guitar tech that Bruce Springsteen was sitting in on a show.
Oh, wow.
And he needed a guitar tech. And I said, sure, I'll do it. It was, I forget where it was. It was in Los Angeles. It was this old show. And I guess I had made an impression on them because they gave me a little sidebar in one of their books. You know, they said, we did a show in LA with Gary and Hoover and Mouse and all these other people. And whenever Hoover needed me to work, I would go out and do gigs with Hoover. He did all kinds of stuff. He did Slash's Snake Pit, hits from the Bong. What was that band? Cypress Hill, right. He did a lot of great tours. He worked for Crosby, Stills, and Nash for probably 10 years. I don't know, maybe more. He was at the original Woodstock. He still has his tennis shoes with mud on them, you know. The guy's done a lot of shows.
Wow.
But he got me involved with Steven. And one day I got a phone call wanting to know if I could go out and mix front of house for the Rock Bottom Remainders. Now, I just assumed, that Hoover was on a tour and he couldn't do it. And I didn't call him to tell him, I just, like I said, I assumed he was already on a tour.
Oh,
well, it turned out that I guess they had an issue in Florida with some, something bad happened. I don't know. But anyway, they asked me if I would go out. And I did. And I got a phone call, I don't know how much longer after that, wanting to know why I took his gig.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't take anything. I don't know what you're talking about. And it was a pretty sore spot for a while. I mean, I don't know if he's still mad at me over it, because I didn't really try to take his gig.
Yeah, right.
I just answered the goddamn phone is what I did.
Right.
And that phone would ring a lot. So, I'm sorry, Hoover, but I didn't mean to take your gig.
Well, I hope he understands. And then, so you end up with Steven and you're doing more than just mixing. Didn't you end up at like doing escorting him through book signings? And
we'd have to do all kinds of, because we didn't have a crew.
Right.
After Hoover was gone, it was just me. I would literally go in, set up the band, go through their monitors, and we had 12 mixes on stage, 23 singers.
Wow.
And players, and they were all artists. So to me, they were the world's richest garage band. They really were. They were all millionaires, just about. I mean, you had David Barry, you had Stephen King, Mitch Albom, who wrote Tuesdays with Morrie. Mm-hmm. Who else? Ridley Pearson, who wrote a lot of stuff for Disney, and just Mitch Albom. I said Mitch, just a bunch of great Scott Turow, and we had Matt Groening, who was in the band, from The Simpsons.
Yeah, which was, I had the one picture up that he had, one of the pictures that he had up. Right. That
was the episode where he just had a marquee with the Rock Bottom Remainders playing.
That's hilarious.
And it said every single ticket still available.
But didn't he draw you? Did he do a picture of you? Didn't he do
no.
No. Oh, he did. I guess you have a Homer. sketch.
Yeah, he
You
would
have something of his.
Yeah, he would draw me a Bart, or he would draw me
Right.
a
Okay,
Homer.
that's it. Yeah,
Yeah, whatever. And
throw it your way.
but we would have all kinds of great people in that band. We had Roger McGuinn.
Mm-hmm.
He was with us for a long time, playing his 12 string and stuff.
Yeah.
It's great working for Steve. I mean, they're probably the coolest band I have ever worked for, because they are so grateful for everything that you do for them, because they never have that.
Right.
You know, it's like poor Steven, he can't walk outside without 15 people walking up to him.
Yeah.
And wanting his autograph. He's always mobbed. If they see him in a van, we get crowded, you know, you need the police to get us out of there. And he's such a genteel person.
He's so kind. I mean, I if you don't mind me telling my Stephen King Gary story.
No. You know Stephen.
I drove barely. I mean, not like you, but I drove by him, and the girls are, I'm with my daughters in the car, and I'm like, girls, that's Stephen King. And they're like, yeah, you're not going to do anything about it. I'm like, watch. And I turn around, and I'm like, hey, Mr. King, Gary Hirstius says hi. And he's like, everybody knows Gary. Gary's a good guy. And I'm like, yeah, Gary's a good guy. I know you're so busy. I'm leaving right now, Mr. King. You know, but the girls were like, you're not going to do that. And I'm like, oh, yes, I will. Gary knows. We can drop that name.
Yeah, if he knows what you're talking about, he's very approachable.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what we had always heard. He sits in at the little restaurant up on the lake there.
Right.
That's his breakfast. If you want to say hi, you say hi. If you don't, you don't. You know, and he does his thing. That's an amazing thing. You know.
Unfortunately, most people that approach Stephen have got like 10 books in their arms.
Right. They want something.
They want something. In fact, one night I was with Larry and Charlie Evans, who rest in peace, who just passed away. We were up in New York for a show, and we got up at like 4 a.m. to go do Good Morning America. Mm-hmm. And on the way to the limos, there were all these people standing outside with books, because you got that many authors, you're going to have a lot of bookworms, you know, once it's signed. And as we're going towards the limo, I hear one guy go, Mr. King, can I get your autograph? And he goes, no, I'm busy. I got to go. And he keeps walking. And the kid yells out, oh, come on. I got up at 2 a.m. to be here. Stephen, without even looking back, goes, I didn't tell you to get up that early.
That's classic.
I was like, perfect.
He's just got to be able to roll with it. I mean, that's just so.
There was no thought in his mind about it. He didn't even look back, and he just goes, "I didn't tell you to get up that early."
That's great. Okay, I said we were going to end with that, but actually we should. Let's just say you did early time with Greg, and then this is right at the end of Greg's career, right? You know, before that.
That was a strange from the beginning. That was a strange thing. I got a call from Todd Goldstein, like 4 o'clock in the morning. I was staying at the hostel, the Heartbreak Hotel over there, and answered the phone. And I, what's up? And he says, I need you to get up, get dressed, go to BWI Airport. There's a flight booked for you for Florida, for Miami, Florida. And I go, what's up? And he goes, Greg Allman's bus crashed. And Mike Galloon, who is my roommate, my friend, was injured. And we need you to go down and do monitors. And I was like, sure, no problem. You know, so I got up and went down to Florida, set up all the gear. I was pretty familiar with all the gear, so it wasn't that hard. Mike had a good file going. Everything sounded good. Yeah. Everything worked. Packed it up, and, you know, we went on. Did a few more shows. At that point, I became like a tech for Mike, and I would help him set up stuff because he couldn't lift anything. He was hurt. Right. His neck was hurt. And we had some good shows and good times. They kept me on for some reason. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But we ended up doing a rehearsal at this place called Avatar I think you have a picture of it. It was Greg's last rehearsal, and I just happened to throw a CD player into the console and record it. I still have it. It's great. It's a really nice recording.
Wow.
But
that's special.
Yeah, and the reason that they had me do front of house was because his regular sound guy, Big E, also worked for Mannheim Steamroller.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a picture with Greg in the background,
and that's his last rehearsal.
That was the last rehearsal we did,
and
we went on and we did the Laid Back Fest, and Ira did. Mike did monitors, and I mixed the front of house, which was really quite a turnaround because back when I was working at SIR, I met Greg Allman at SIR. He was doing rehearsals with the Allman Brothers Band. I don't think Dwayne was alive at the time, but he had just gotten married to Cher.
Okay.
And I guess him and Cher were having a little bit of an argument in the studio about,
whether or not he believed in love after love.
No, it had something to do with a horn player.
Oh, okay.
She didn't like a horn player. I think he was a trombone player.
Oh, okay.
Because I saw him a few minutes later after she came out arguing with Greg. I don't care how long he's been in the band. I want him out.
Wow.
Whatever. But a few minutes later, I saw this horn player come walking out with his case.
Man.
And, I thought, damn. And a few minutes later, Greg Allman walked into the office. And he comes up to me and he goes, I need to get some beer.
Yeah, I bet you do, man.
I was like, yeah, I'd want more than beer if I was married to that.
Right.
But I said, okay, sure, I'll go get you some beer. And he handed me like $20. He says, just bring me a 6-pack. So I ran across the street to the liquor store and I got a 6-pack of Dos Equis, which was a very popular beer in LA as far as I knew. And I came back and I popped it open and I handed it to him and he took a swig. He swigged it back, got a mouthful of it and spit it right out on my shoes. Spit it all over my shoes. And he goes, what the fuck is this? And I said, it's Corona. It's a good beer. He goes, get back here and get me a Texas beer. So I went back and I got him a Lone Star, which he was very happy with, But I was not too happy with Greg. I thought, what an asshole. He just, fucking spit all over my shoes. But it was cool. And then all of a sudden you flash ahead to now. And if you would have told me back then you're going to be the last guy to mix Greg Allman live, I would have said you're nuts.
Right.
But I did. It was very sad. We went to New York to the winery, and he missed every show.
Yeah.
And we just didn't know, and how bad off he was, and it just shocked me to find out, and he was a very, very nice guy. Greg was a nice guy, and his tour manager was an old friend of mine, Vid Sutherland. Shout out to Vid. Vid was around during the Rat days. He worked for Rat.
Okay.
And round and round Rat. We got a rat problem. And
oh yeah.
I
always had wrong thing here. Where am I going here? Where is the Gary's Picks? There we go. That's Vid?
That's Vid. That's Vid. Vid was an old punk rocker back in the day.
Huh.
And he worked with Black Flag a lot, the Dickies.
Okay.
And he had a place that they'd lived in called the Ponderosa. Very famous in South Beach. A lot of you say, you ever been to Ponderosa? Yeah, well, that was Vid back then. Huh. And he ended up working for Rat, and his career just took off.
Wow. And
again, it's because he's such a cool dude.
Right. And it's not just always what it's how you can deal with people and how you can approach.
It's how you can assess every situation.
Yeah.
Because every artist is different. I mean, ask Mike Malone, about Cyndi Lauper. Oh my God, poor Mike, but
He
You
talked
just
about her or some on the stream. It was a he talked about the comings and the goings and just how right when sometimes you can get a groove going and then everything can change.
it can in a heartbeat, and hopefully, all this COVID stuff will be over soon enough.
Yep.
We'll all be back to work. I just want to shout out to my daughters, Amanda, Melissa, all my grandchildren. I want to say hi, thank you to so many people that have helped me out. Penelope Spheris for giving me my first film to work on. Lou Adler for 20 years of the Roxy and many, many great shows.
God, we didn't really even touch on the Roxy for you at all either.
The Roxy was the Roxy. I probably did at least 2,000 bands there.
God.
Over 20 years. And, that I've met so many kids that would come to me and want me to, get them started in audio. Eddie Ortel, who now does sound for Guar.
Okay.
Guys like him. I've taught girls. I've always thought girls were great for audio.
Yeah.
I used to have this little Japanese girl. Her name was Yasil. And Yasil was she came to the U.S. from Japan to go to sound school. And when she got here and paid her tuition, the school collapsed.
Oh.
Just went out of business. So she came to me in tears, telling me that, she couldn't face her father, who had worked so hard and spent all of his money. And so I took her to the Roxy and put her to work teaching her. She said that she had plenty of money to live. She didn't need any money, but we started paying her. And it was just great watching that girl come out of her shell.
Right.
I remember I used to have to tell her how to yell at bands.
Yeah.
Because she was just a petite little Japanese girl. And, she'd go, "Oh, please turn down. Please turn down in."
Oh, yeah, no, that's not how you tell a guitarist.
And I go, no.
Hey, man, turn that down.
Turn that shit down, dude, right now. Turn it down.
And have you kept up with her? Did she move on in the industry? And
she ended up coming to New York and working at SIR. She's out in LA. I think she still does audio, but she has just blossomed into one beautiful young woman.
That's awesome.
She's so, oh God, just great. I'm so happy for her. A lot of girls. I taught this one girl. I can't remember her name, and don't hate me for it, but she ended up touring with Beck.
Huh, okay.
So a lot of people, and I always try to give people a break.
Yep.
Because
yep.
I never got that coming up in audio. It's like if you went and watched some guy mixing a show and you had a question, they'd ignore you.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even tell you. I did Johnny Carson one night with Willie Nelson, and I remember asking this guy a question about the monitor console, and he ignored me. And I said, "Hey, dude, what's your problem?" And he goes, "Why should I tell you how to do my job?"
Right.
And that's the way people were. They were very protective about what they did.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about a time when everybody who worked for a sound company, they were like 6'5". And I could never figure out, why are all these sound guys so big? Well, it was because all the boxes and stuff were huge.
They were huge. They had to get a whole bunch of them up real high. And
so they would have to hire these jocks to come out and do shows. And eventually these guys started learning how to do audio.
Yep.
And that's seriously, that is how it started. With jocks and security guys. You had to be big to lift these cases and all the speakers and stuff and the drivers.
And that's why sound guys don't count to 3 now, right?
No, you got to lift something.
You got to lift on 3.
No, I don't count to 3. 2's as far as I go. Check. I don't even do 2 anymore.
Check 1.
I just like, okay, start playing.
Yep, just give it to me, guys.
Just play a song,
Yeah. All right, Gary. I don't want to keep you much longer. I know you got to drive tonight. You got to get yourself going home, and it's
I want to get home before the snow's done. But thanks everybody that tuned in.
Yep.
And I'll read all your comments and stuff later.
Yep.
And thank you all. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gary, really, for being here. And thank everybody in the chat, Larry and Gail and Ryan and Art and Kevin, everybody that's been hanging out tonight.
All our homies.
Yeah, all the guys here hanging out with us. We all appreciate everybody. And next week, I'm just going to tell you, I got a buddy, Patrick Dorsey, guitar tech extraordinaire. Always
good.
a fun one. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard me talk about him a couple of times.
Sure have, yeah.
I'm really excited to have him on and catch up with him too.
Well, I can't wait. I'm going to tune in to all these shows.
Right on, buddy. Well, I'm really glad that you came out here. I'm honored that you took the time to do this. I really,
I appreciate you having me, bud. You know.
Yeah, man. Of course.
We've even toured together, so you got to have me back.
Yep.
We'll do some more.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about our time together. God,
man, it's like the happy campers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we had some good and the happy camper times and
the happy camper
times,
tour.
All the good times. Yep. Hey, boys, how's it going, man? And Larry, thank you guys, and Jeff, everybody saying hi. Gail saying thanks, Gary. Please come back soon and
thank you.
Yep, I'd love to have you back on with a few people again and do a little round table.
All righty, man. Well,
you and Racklid.
Me and Racklid, yeah. Say goodnight, Rack. Good night, everybody.
All right, Gary. Thank you. And everybody, thank you all very much for being here. Text to the Stars, episode number 6. Gary Hirstius, that's a wrap, buddy. Thank you, sir. Peace out, you guys.